Welcome to Theme Weavers, your weekly wisdom for weaving yoga themes into your classes to inspire your students. I'm your host, Heidi Kassner. Let's get started. Hello, hello. How are you?
You.
Good. Look at your beautiful fireplace.
Oh, thank you.
It looks very cozy.
You don't need it when it's 85 degrees out there.
Oh, yeah, it's probably hotter there. We had a horrible heat wave like midway through last week but it broke and now it's freezing and raining.
Oh, rain would be nice. All of North Carolina is in a drought, so yeah,
It's
bummer.
not fun.
No.
That is a bummer. But
Yeah.
hopefully you have air conditioning.
We do, of course. Everything is air conditioned here.
I always feel like such a privileged snob when I'm like, oh, I don't know how I can live without my air conditioning. 'Cause
Totally.
I don't know.
Have you, you're out of the closet.
I'm out of the closet. I'm in my yoga studio that I
Oh,
opened. I don't
beautiful.
remember if I had talked to you about when we were on the call that I was thinking about having a studio
How
or not.
exciting.
Yeah.
Well,
We
hit record. You can tell me about it live and promote your studio.
well we're recording. Yeah,
Okay,
no, I
great.
opened it let's see, in September 2nd was my first class. It's at my house. My house is over here, and it had this big, huge, dilapidated barn from the 1800s that
Oh,
had
wow.
nothing basically other than musty grossness. And my dream was to be able to have a studio, and finally happened.
How is it feeling? How is it going?
It's going really well. I didn't really know what to expect, right? Like, you have these dreams and you envision all of the past, 10 years of people will carry over with you, but then reality happens and you don't know what will actually end up happening. And of course, in August, as I was getting ready to like send out all the information and get the transition ready, my son had a huge medical emergency and needed to have a second emergency open heart surgery. It was horrible. And literally, he got home from the hospital, and 2 days later, I opened the studio. So it was like a total whirlwind. And everybody was like, you should push it back. And I said, you know what? It's at my house. I'll have
Mhm.
people sitting with him if needed. If I have to cancel, people will understand. But what a amazing experience of having to go through some of the lowest lows with the highest highs and try and find that middle ground in between. And it was interesting, but I did it.
And you're coming up on a year almost. We always thought it took at least 9 months. It was kind of like creating a baby. Like,
Yeah.
it took 9 months for a new location to grow and put down roots, but really it's a series of years to see where it's going to go.
So far, it's been beyond, when I wanted to do it, my husband was like, do you have a business plan? And I'm like, yes, I'm going to create a barn and I'm going to teach yoga. And he's like, that is not a business plan. He's a financial analyst. So he sat me down and he's like, if you're going to do this, you have to build out what it's going to cost, what you think your expenses will be, how long will it take to make your money back? And I was like, oh, this isn't very fun. But I learned a lot. And I've beyond exceeded where I thought I would be at this point. Almost every class has
Yay.
waiting lists. It's so exciting. It's beyond what I could have imagined. I'm so grateful.
How wonderful. Meanwhile, I sold my studio. I
I was
sold my
going to
house.
ask for a little
Yeah.
update. What we were on, when did your last book was in 2025, 24?
25. Yeah, they come fast and furious these days. So the Art of Yoga Sequencing was 2024, and the second volume of Teaching Yoga Beyond the Poses, when Alexandra and I were on your show last, was 2025. In fact, I think it was around this time in 25. So
I think
yeah, here we
so.
are a year later, and I'm in a very different place from a business perspective. I like to describe it as floating free of time and space because I I sold my half of my brick and mortar yoga studio to my business partner, and we still own a few other businesses together, but I'm out of that yoga side of being anchored to the Monday night class that I taught for almost 23 years. I mean, that's a real change. And it's kind of funny to me how quickly I have adapted to it. I think that shows me that it was time to do it. So I
Yeah.
exist out here in the ether now in a virtual yoga studio focused on teacher development called Comfort Zone Yoga, where I have a lesson planning membership, a 200-hour training, a 300-hour training, and also provide curriculum support to people who want to start their own. You can license my training, or I can whitelist my training for folks who want to run a 200-hour yoga teacher training, which is probably somewhere you'll get to eventually with the studio, because that is often a really rewarding, both financially and psychospiritually, really rewarding part of having a space.
It's fun. When I used to manage the old studio I was at, I did run my first 200, and it was really cool. It was just me. I didn't have any other teachers doing it with me. So it was a lot of time and
Yeah.
energy depletion also, but also completely energy filling. But
Mhm.
I definitely realized if and when I'm going to do it again, I think I need to wait until my kids get a little bit older. It's
As
a
you say, it
huge
eats up
commitment.
an enormous amount of the application itself eats up an enormous amount of time, which is why I offer the service to, like, "Here,
Yeah,
just use mine."
that's pretty
And
cool.
to do it all by yourself, especially, like, Yoga Alliance wants 180 hours to actually happen, in real time, whether it's online or in person. That's a lot of time for you to be
It's a lot.
together with the students, you know? So it's good to have a partner. It's good to have video resources. There are ways that we can create efficiencies so that it's not just you sitting there for
It's a
180 hours.
lot. It's a lot. That's really cool. So have you always offered that at Comfort Zone Yoga, or is this new to having
No,
this whole new
it's
model?
new. It's new this year. I'm actually piloting at Carber Yoga, which is the studio that I co-owned for the last 15 years, and they're using my video curriculum as part of their 200, which I still direct. I kept my hand in that because I have the credentials to carry that forward. And when the lead teachers have risen to that level of credentialing, then they will take it over from me.
That's really exciting. I mean, it sounds like you enjoy letting go of the Monday night class, but how has that transition been otherwise for you?
It's been really good. I my heart was always in training the teachers, and I love working with athletes. That's still my, the side revenue of my business is, to teach directly to student athletes. But I love thinking about the deeper structures at play here, and, like, why would we put the sequence together in this way? Why do we teach class in this way? How can we be of highest service to our students? And get our egos out of the way. And those are the kind of questions that I was getting really interested in. So it's been a lot of fun to have the time and space freed of the anchor of a physical location and its toilets and its parking and all of the things that come with that. And out here just living the dream on the internet.
That's pretty fun. Is it isolating, or is your hand still enough in the physical space that you feel like you can still get your grasp on people?
Yeah, I don't feel at all isolated.
That's
But
good.
I think I am an extroverted introvert. Like, I like to be alone. I do a lot of my best work alone, and I really like generating asynchronous content, like sitting down with the camera to record. I love, like, the whole production side of things, editing my own videos, uploading my own videos, and, like, maybe it's the control freak in me, or maybe it's
I was
the
going to say, I think I'm the same way, and I think it is is why I did my teacher training myself. Like, I'm a little too grippy
yeah.
there.
I do kinda love it, but I did, spend 6 years in public radio announcing and production, so it's been a joy to get back to that side of things, like recording my
Mm.
podcast, gives me a lot of that, and it's just such a pleasure for me. When I first started in audio, we were literally working with reel-to-reel tapes and razor blades and splicing tape and taping it back together with Scotch tape, so to go from that to being able to record straight into my computer and edit it in a transcript is absolutely mind-blowing.
It's so wild. I was talking to my kids about how back in my day, when I would listen to music, you had to and you wanted to have it, you'd have to have your tape recorder ready to hit record when the song comes on the radio, but you'd have to listen to the radio until maybe the song that you want to hear would come on. And God forbid you go to the bathroom right as that song comes on, because then that whole process starts again. They're like, huh? I said, well, you could go and buy the tape at like Strawberries, where you go and buy your music, but that's expensive. And what if you don't want all the songs on it? You just want that one song. And they were so confused. You have the world at your fingertips.
Yep.
Everything you want is on this little box or this tiny little rectangle device of your
Mhm.
phone. And you just say what you want and poof, it's
Yeah,
there. It's
it's pretty
magic.
wild. Think
And I
about what
wonder
that
what it'll
does
be
to your
like for
wiring, that
them.
everything is on demand. You don't have to have this patience that we developed in the '80s and '90s.
And you lose it to yourself a little bit. Don't you feel like you used to be able to just sit and wait and you'd have your candle lit or your incense burning, and maybe you'd be talking on your phone to somebody else while you're doing it, but you'd also just lay on your bed and listen to music. My kids can't do it, and I struggle with it now. We're watching TV and I'm like, this is kind of boring on a commercial. I'm going to now scroll through my phone. I forget
Mm,
how to just be. It's
yeah,
amazing how we lose it. And I
yep.
wonder what our kids, when they are our ages, what will be happening for them, that they'll have those remember when moments, that it's mind blowing that they had to do things this way. It's
I can't even conceive of where we may be heading with that.
I don't know. I remember talking to my grandparents before they passed about how much they've seen technology just burst open, and how they never would have pictured in their youth where they would be at the end of their life, with how, if they couldn't see, they could listen to somebody read to them and they didn't have to have the person sitting next to them. Something that never could have happened before.
Right.
It's very cool.
It is very cool. I Our grandparents probably did see the biggest jump that people we will have met, either preceding or, superseding us, will have ever seen, but we're seeing a lot right now.
We are. And I also think there's an element that's very interesting when we think about, wait, before I get ahead of myself, your new book is out, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I was reading it because I love, and highlighting because I highlight a lot. But it's fun to get to read about philosophy and remind yourself about things. And Spanda, right? That expansion and
Mhm,
contraction. I feel like we've expanded so much that there's this natural contraction that's starting to take place, this throwback to the 90s, right? My
mhm.
one year, my son wanted a cassette player to listen to music on. And I was like, huh? But it's expanded so much that we need to almost find a way to go back to how some parts of it were before, to balance it out, because you can't just keep expanding. We'll lose our ground.
Yep, and I think that's where you are in a good position owning a brick and mortar yoga studio, because when people spend all day on their computer in their heads, with content that's been generated by computers, what is a better grounding antidote than being around people with their own creative ideas and imperfections and realness, and hearing each other breathe and moving collectively? It's really
Yeah,
the antidote.
it really is. And we were actually just talking about this morning before class. A lot of my students tend to be, I'd say like mid 60s and above. They were talking about their best friend AI, ChatGPT, and how it helps them with so many things, such as even learning how to work their new mini split air conditioner.
Mhm.
And we were joking around about things. And I was sitting here thinking, as I'm listening to them all talk, that my brain, when I stop having to generate knowledge and figure out how to solve problems, starts to get very thick and muddy. And I have trouble even sometimes having actual creative or like conversations that go back and forth, because I've got to shut off a part of my brain. And I think about all the people that are increasing. I mean, we live longer, but right, there's also increasing dementia and Alzheimer's and different cognitive things. And if we're in our late to mid 50s and beyond, relying more on AI to help us be able to not fall behind, what's that going to do to our own cognitive decline as well? I don't know. These were my thoughts this morning.
Yeah, that's a scary question. It certainly has upsides, and it clearly has many downsides as well.
Yeah. Anyway, we totally went off the rails right there in our
I
beginning
love it.
conversation. And I
I
didn't
love
even
it.
introduce you to
You can use
people.
it. Well, I was so happy to see the physical copy of the book, because I'm up at our mountain place, and I haven't gotten my physical copies yet. They're going to my
This is
mid-state
it.
home. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Yoga off the mat. And not only is it beautiful, but I really, really like how it feels,
Oh, good. Yeah,
which is such
sometimes
a weird thing, but
the paper stock they use for the cover, does it have that kind of, like a sheen feeling to it?
it's not like so shiny glossy that you slide right off. It has like a little bit of grip, but it feels really nice in your hands.
Good.
which, which is such a I read it on my Kindle to sleep at night. And so
Mm.
when I get to hold physical books in my hands, I get very excited.
Well, I'm
I get very
excited too
excited.
because I can see the back cover, which
Oh,
I
yeah.
haven't seen in those colors. It looks
This is the back.
fantastic.
It's really beautiful if you're not watching the video version of this podcast. Yeah, it's Yoga Off the Mat. And you wrote the book with Alexandra Desiato, who was with us last time. I think I looked back ahead. I think it was episode 60, but I'll link it in the show notes because that's where I really introduce you both and go through your bios. But you have a new book, and apparently you write a book a year now. Is that your plan?
That was my plan. That was just kind of the default for much of the tweenies. Um, my first book came out in 2008, and then 2009, then maybe 11, 12, 15, 18, like every few years. So this is book 13 for me.
Do you already have the next one started?
I have 2. Yeah. Yeah. So I have 2, 2 in various stages of proposal, and I may wind up going in one direction or the other sequentially, or I may wind up kind of doing them simultaneously. We will see. Some of this is, up to the fates, up to the publishers, and what sells first, and whether I decide to hold one of these back and do it myself, which is always an option if folks are, like, interested in books. Please remember that self-publishing is an option that has come so much farther than it was. I self-published one of my books in 2014, 15, and
Mhm.
I had a background in publishing, so I was pretty familiar with it. But there were some pretty opaque parts of the process at that point. Now it's so easy. It's so easy. Heck, your friend ChatGPT or Claude can tell you exactly what steps to take and can format it for you in EPUB, and you could just have it as an ebook. And when you are selling your own book, kind of like when you are hosting your own yoga classes or running your own workshop, you get the lion's share of the revenue versus a traditionally published book like this one, you get a lot less. But that also means you get the publisher making all the decisions about the beautiful cardstock that they use for the cover, the way it feels, the colors it looks, the payment to include those gorgeous illustrations that are in this book, as well as teaching yoga beyond the poses and volume 2 of that series. All of that is something that I would never have had the vision to do on my own without my
Right.
publisher, North Atlantic.
You get more supports.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is if you always the one that you whenever I think you said you did one yourself, were all the
Mhm.
others with the same publisher, or have you swapped around?
At the beginning, they were all with Velo Press, which was an endurance sports focused press because I have this background in yoga for athletes. So my first book was called The Athlete's Guide to Yoga, and that's the one that came out in 2008. And I did 5 books with Velo, and then jumped into the yoga side of things. So Lifelong Yoga, which I also co-wrote with Alexandra, is North Atlantic. I had one book with a fantastic publisher called The Experiment. That's the Professional Yoga Teacher's Handbook. What I loved, that's the book of my heart. You know, we wouldn't choose favorites of children, but it won't hurt the books to say like that is my favorite of my books. The Professional Yoga Teacher's Handbook I had to rework during the early days of the pandemic. It was in,
Mm,
I think it was even in proofs at that point. And so the experiment worked so hard with me to like bring it up to date and make guesses about where the profession would be going as we emerged, moved through and then emerged from the pandemic. And happily, a lot of my guesses were good. And I think the book is going to carry value for many years to come. But that book touched people's yoga teacher aspirations in very interesting ways. Both my editor on the book and the designer of the book, after working on the book, went on to do yoga teacher training, which just made
oh,
me
that's
so
so
happy.
interesting. Is that the
Yeah.
intention? It's for people before becoming yoga teachers to help
Yes,
inspire their
it is like
journey?
the map of your career from the, is what is this feeling I have? What is this calling I might be hearing to help people with yoga from that moment all the way through to doing what you're doing, opening your own studio or even starting to train other teachers, which is exactly the work that I do at Comfort Zone Yoga now is like getting people from that very first glimmer of vocation all the way to serving people who are receiving that very first glimmer of vocation. And I have offers along the way, all along the way.
You really do. You've built quite a career and
Mhm.
trajectory for yourself. It's amazing. So this book, the Yoga Off the Mat one, I'm curious about what transitioned you from the previous book before that you and Alexandra wrote, which was more directed toward yoga teachers. And this one, although yoga teachers, I think, can really benefit from it. I'll be curious what your thought process is with that. But this one is, I think, a little bit more geared toward anybody that's interested in more than just asana with yoga? Like, what are these things that teachers are referencing for little glimmers within class? What is all of this really about? Was that
That's
your thought?
exactly right, Heidi. Yeah, it's we certainly saw that teachers were enjoying teaching yoga beyond the poses, our books on theming, and we've gotten so much positive feedback around those books. It's like, okay, you're always thinking like from the business perspective, how can I replicate this, but like expand my audience even
Yeah.
more? So the answer is clearly to write a general population book that teachers can use and can even use the things that we cover in yoga off the mat. Plug them into the theming templates that we lay out in Teaching Yoga Beyond the Poses and have wonderful themes for yoga classes. But it's also, I like that you picked up on that word glimmer, because yes, we were just talking about like hearing the vocation to be a yoga teacher. But I think that way before that, each of us, if we've made it to the point where we would be yoga teachers and listening to this great podcast, is it notices that glimmer very early. Sometimes it's in your first yoga class ever. Sometimes it's in your 15th. But at some point in the first few months, if not weeks, if not class practicing yoga, you recognize that there is something more to the experience than just moving and breathing and making shapes with your body. It's not only a fitness experience. In fact, it's not in large part a fitness experience, even if that was the hook that brought you in. You wanted to feel like you were more flexible, or you wanted to ease your low back pain, or whatever physical reason brought you into yoga pretty quickly. Most of us experience the alchemy of whatever is deeper. And for
Yeah.
most of us, I think that happens in shavasana, but for some of us that happens in balance pose, or in just realizing that we spent an hour with ourselves, with our breath, with our bodies, without our phones, as you say, like that moment of
Yeah.
boredom where you want to pull out and thumb through your phone. So, for anybody who ever had that experience, which is probably to say anybody who's been to more than one yoga class, there was something that brought them back. And this book is a manual to some of the teachings of yoga that would explain why you wanted to keep going to yoga and
Mm.
what yoga can do for you in your life, how yoga can bring you a step or many steps closer to feeling connected, to feeling free, to feeling more yourself, to feeling more of use to people around you, to the planet, to the divine, not to put too light a point on it. So that is it sounds like a big project, but that is the project of the book.
Yeah, I think you did a really good job with it, and even the parts that some people, right, you even did it there, the divine, right? The things that a lot of people shy away from, because they're uncomfortable by it or don't understand it or feel like it's not that's not my yoga or
Mhm.
whatnot. I think you did a really nice job of touching on it without going so deep that, like, you have to believe these things. At one point, I don't even remember what chapter it was in, you and Alexandra said something about the fact that, like, these are all of these offerings. In order to be a yoga student, you don't need to buy into all of them. It might just be one of them that really resonates with you, and that's the one that you're practicing and connecting with. Beautiful. Just because you're not resonating with the others doesn't mean that you're not a true yogi or somebody that really, or even a true teacher, right? There's a lot of teachers that are very uncomfortable by a lot of the teachings of yoga. And like you're still a wonderful yoga teacher, even if you're just teaching, not even just, even if you're teaching students how to observe your breath, feel the ground underneath you. And every time your mind fluctuates, can you bring yourself back? That is the teaching of yoga. You don't have to necessarily believe in the divine or any of the further things that come. You start someplace.
Yeah, it would be really difficult to be dogmatic about yoga because yoga is such a stranded tradition, and there are a lot of direct contradictions among various schools of and approaches to yoga. So it would be folly to try to say this is the way to do it.
And there are a lot of schools of yoga, though, that do that, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're
Yeah.
smiling and nodding, right? We've all
Yeah.
been exposed to, like, this is yoga, this is not yoga. Where do you fall? And if you're not here, then you don't belong here, right?
Right.
I assume from what I know about you so far and from what you know about me, like, that's not either of us. But people that listen, like, you might have experienced that either as a student or in your teacher training. You just never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I actually was inspired by you this morning with the class that I taught. I wish I wrote down what chapter it's in, but the story of the two arrows,
Ah, yes.
right?
Yes, and that's I'm glad that you mentioned that because this is a teaching from the Buddhist tradition, and the book certainly takes you through a few of these multifaceted elements of yoga, but then also draws on other traditions, especially Buddhism, where we talk about the two arrows. We talk about practicing metta meditation. So there are some adjacent wisdom traditions that are pulled in as well.
I think it's great, and you don't have to be Buddhist to
No,
teach that, right?
no, no. How did
Like,
you do it in your class today, Heidi?
I don't even remember why. So I don't know if you know this about me. I don't have a plan when I teach a class. I just sort of show up, I read the room, and sometimes it's by listening to the conversations ahead of time that are happening and or the positions that people are in. I'm like, all right, I can see where this needs to go. And I just sort of start talking. And I don't remember why that came up. What were we talking about? I don't remember how it came up, but I started to talk about, oh, I know. I said I was doing this after. I said I was interviewing you and how cool it was, and that I've had you on before, and how, when as a new little baby yoga teacher, I had found your books and hadn't known you yet, and how special that was the first conversation. And then to be asked again to have you on and talk was like such a heartwarming experience. And as I was reading your book, something stood out to me, and I think it's really relevant for us in the room today. We all go through things where maybe it's a hardship, right? So let me give an example. Jim was in the corner and I said, Jim, maybe you stubbed your toe walking into yoga today. Did you stub your toe? He's like, no. I'm like, great. That's awesome. But pretend that you did. You stubbed your toe and it really hurt, right? He's like, oh, it's killing me. I said, wonderful. I'm sorry that happened. But that's the first arrow. Something happened to you. Maybe it was in your control if you were paying better attention, but let's just say it wasn't in your control. The next thing that happens is the mind starts to go places. You might say, oh, shoot, now I'm not going to be able to take this class. My toe really hurts. Is Heidi going to make us do things where I'm going to be putting a lot of weight on my toe? I should just maybe leave because I'm going to stink at this class right now. And I'm going to leave more frustrated than I began. And then, Jim, you're really stressed out because of all this, right? He's like, of course I am. Yes. Like, great. That's the second arrow. That's within your control.
Mhm.
And maybe this was a bad example because you could have controlled stubbing your toe. So I'll get personal for a moment. We all know in this room that my son had heart surgery last summer. That's certainly not in my control. It was not in my control that he was going to develop an aneurysm that ruptured. It's not in my control that the surgery was successful. But was in my control was every single thought and fear and anxiety that's existed since that day in August, where I'm perseverating on it. What's going to
Mhm.
happen when he goes to camp? Is he going to need another surgery? Oh my God, how am I going to feel if he needs another surgery? How's my daughter going to respond to this? What's that going to do to my business? Whoa, none of this has happened yet. But I
Mhm.
just lived so much stress and pain about the what ifs. The first arrow, him needing surgery, not in control. Everything that happened after, totally in my control. And yoga teaches us all about the fact that life is full of things that make us feel pain and suffering. Some of that we can avoid and some we can't. But as much as we can, learn to find tools that minimize as much of that that's within our control. Oh my gosh, how much lighter and freer will we live? So, why am I saying this? Right on the mat, I might ask you to do something today that's freaking hard. It might be so hard that you lose your balance and you fall, right? That might happen. Okay. It's really hard. Great. That's the first arrow. I'm like flinging it at you. It's going to be something hard that I'm offering you. Every single, every single thought, story, um, excuse, dare I say, anything like that that flows into your mind, that's arrow two that you're in control of. You don't even have to do what I'm offering you. That's also in your control, right? These are all offerings. Some are in control, some are not, but the suffering comes from the part that is within our control. So that's what we're going to play with today. And then, of course, I had to get literal and we did this like archer type, like like half happy baby and seated,
Uh-huh.
like the archer. Wow, that's my foot. Sorry, but like the pulling back, and
Uh-huh.
then we played with that in balance in different ways. It was really fun, and yeah, that's what I did. All from
Awesome.
reading the book, the chapter.
That's a beautiful theme, and boy, they were lucky to be there for that. I love it.
I love my people. They're not my people. I love the people that grace this space and let me feel safe enough for 10 minutes. This was 10
Mhm.
minutes out of an hour long class.
Mhm.
right? Some people probably wouldn't come back because they just want to move their body
Mhm.
and they don't want to be talked to. But those aren't my people, right? My
No,
people are the ones that are into that piece of it and
the
want
ones who
to
think there's
explore.
something beyond the poses, the ones who want to know about yoga off the mat. Absolutely.
That's right. The class the night before I taught, and then I'll let you talk more. People don't only want to hear me talk. But I teach a nighttime ease into evening candlelit class. There's
Mhm.
no overhead lights, just the little LED candles. It's like mobility, stretching, maybe a little bit of yin toward the end, and a longer shavasana. I don't play music in my classes at all, um, at all. And I'm a
Yep.
musician, so it's interesting. But I do that because for so many people, being in silence is so uncomfortable. And we use things like music to change our feelings
Mhm.
and create that evocative experience within us. But then we don't learn the skills to do that on our own. And I think it's so important to learn how to just be, even if it's uncomfortable. And last Monday, not yesterday, but the Monday before, I had two new people. One obviously did not come back. And after
Yet.
class, she said, no, she's not coming back. And it's, well,
Okay.
maybe she will. You're right. Maybe one day she will. But I'll tell you why. So after class, she comes up, you don't play music. I'm like, you're right. I don't. And she's like, but real yoga teachers play music. I said, that's funny. I think I'm a real yoga teacher. I laughed. I'm like, I think I'm a real yoga teacher. She goes, well, I've been to yoga classes, so I know. I'm like, well, that's the real big beauty of yoga. Like, there's no rule of how you're going to
Mhm.
teach a class. Some teachers choose to play music. Some teachers choose to play very soft little trickling sounds. Some play like rap music or whatnot. Like, they all have individual things. Some play no music at all. She goes, well, that's not really yoga then. You should really be playing music. Like, okay. So can I tell you why I don't? And so then I explained similar to what I just said. And I said, and she's like, but that's not right. I said, well, here's the thing that's really awesome. There's so many yoga studios within like a 10-mile radius of here. And it's okay if I'm not for you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not offended. I promise you. You don't have to come back. But if you want to explore being uncomfortable and seeing what comes of that for you, like, you're always welcome here, but you don't need to, right? I mean, I'd love to have you here, but if it's that uncomfortable for you and this is how I teach, it's okay. And she kind of kept pushing. And eventually I was like, you know what? My husband made dinner inside and it's waiting for me. And I'm so sorry. We can totally finish this conversation another time, but I need to eat. And so I went inside. I told my husband, he's like, why did you let it go on so long? It's like,
Yeah.
well, I don't know. But eventually I you it just needed to end, right? Like, I'm not gonna change the way I teach because you're uncomfortable. It was such a wild experience.
Yes, well, you have seen that, especially when you own a small business, everybody has strong opinions about exactly how you should run it without having the full context behind any of the decisions that you have made, and they're not really interested in why you did it your way. They want you to do it their way, and the sooner you get comfortable with that, the happier you're going to be. I also don't use music, for a different reason. I'm lazy, and it just became one more thing to deal with, especially because a lot of the work I do is taking yoga to the athletes. So I'm teaching in the weight room. They'll put on spa music on their giant speaker, and great, fine. Like that's their deal. Sometimes we're in the weight room and we're doing yoga to country music or heavy metal music or whatever music just happens to be on in the weight room that day, and that's fine. That's part of the process as well. But generally, I just am like I couldn't be bothered. It was just one more stressor, one more thing to think about. And I did used to spend a lot of time on music. Took months, but after 6 months or so, one of my students was like, "Oh, you didn't use music tonight." I was like, "No, you're right. That's so perceptive." It had been months. So I not all students are going to have that hard line, but the tagline, the banner at my website at sageroundtree.com says, "Here to help you become almost everyone's favorite yoga teacher," because the secret is there's no way to be everyone's favorite. Everybody has opinions. I also have opinions about whether I want music or no music in class, and those opinions actually change from day to day. Sometimes I
Of
love it,
course.
sometimes I don't, and another reason not to use it is that you don't have to deal with like then what music to play. Just
Right.
obviate it, make it a moot point. But we have to just do it in the way that feels authentic to us. We have to do it in the way that expresses our tastes and what we would like to receive as students. But most of all, we need to do it in a way that centers our students, that puts them in the role of the hero, and we are just there as the guide. And the ones who are our heroes, that are our people, as you say, they will vibe with it and they will come back. And the ones that don't, well, that's fine. I might have said this because I say this all the time, and I may have said it when we chatted before with Alexandra, but as much as I try to do yoga and follow the precepts that we talk about in Yoga Off the Mat, I still am a human being with, opinions. And as much as I want to be kind to everybody, I don't like everybody. I just don't.
No.
There's some people I actively dislike, in fact, and I bet we dislike some of the same public figures, and that's okay. It's okay to just not like that. And it would be folly for me to then expect everybody to like me. If
Yeah.
I'm not for you, I'm not for you. Yeah. And I love that you're like, yeah, go to one of the other studios. And, some studios will say, like, we expressly do use music, or we use a little musical note on the schedule to denote that this is a class that has music.
Mm.
You can't please everybody, but you'll die trying.
No, and that takes a long time, I think, for newer teachers to gain that confidence. It
Hmm.
was really hard at first. If somebody didn't come back, I felt like crap, right? Like
Hmm.
I'd be like, what did I do? Why didn't they like me? And that has to grow in time. It takes time. And you shouldn't be liked by everybody. Like you said, we don't like everybody.
No, so why would we? It's hypocritical to expect everybody to like us. And we need to focus on the ones who do come back, because those are the ones that we get
Yes.
the opportunity to continue to serve.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I never would tell somebody that I didn't like somebody that I did. Like, well, that's not true. If it was like my child and they did something that I think should have maybe been
Yeah,
more thoughtful, like their mother, but I just would never go to a yoga class and be like, "Wow, I hated that. Why would you do that?"
I
I
know.
would just
It,
leave.
it is sometimes astounding that people would be so frank in their judgments, like directly to your face.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I could right, you said you don't use it for a different reason. Time. I think you maybe even said like did you say lazy? I don't know what you said. But like it's a time suck, right? Like it's a lot of time. I've also heard people say to me, again, I have a lot of older students, hearing foreground noise, right? Teacher teaching,
Mhm.
and hearing background noise can be very confusing ideologically and make it very difficult to perceive one versus the other. And so it's in some ways more inclusive.
Mhm.
And then my trauma informed lens says some ways it's actually not that inclusive because some people sitting in silence can feel very triggering. But then some people listening to music can feel very triggering. You
Yeah.
can again go in circles. So as long as you know yourself and who you want to
Just
be as a teacher, that's
make
it.
a choice and stand by your choice. And if your choice changes down the road, then that's going to be okay too. But yeah, there's no way to. It would be ridiculous to try to please everybody. Yeah, because even like right there, what you say about the inclusivity of like not making things harder on folks who are hard of hearing, and then also like yeah, not making it so quiet that people with a history of trauma are feeling stuck, or not playing music that triggers them. Oh man.
It's too much to think about. It's too
Hmm.
much. It's too much. We already wear enough hats as it is, right? So within your book, I'm curious, did you have I liked the way that you set it up in terms of the parts for those of you that haven't read it yet, because it's not even out yet. When does it come out?
Next Tuesday, the
Next
14th of
Tuesday.
July.
Good day. But you have it set up into different parts. So I don't know if you remember them, if you want to speak to them, or if you'd rather me speak to it.
I
It's
do
you.
remember because I have been looking at the table of contents before I've gone on this little press podcast tour. Yeah, so we open with an introduction that just gives some context without being a full scholarly explication of the history of yoga. We touch on some of the concepts straight out of the Yoga Sutras in part one, and then we begin to go broader. We look at yoga and positive psychology, some of the happy things that yoga has to offer us. And then we look at the shadow side as well, and the kleshas, the obstacles to enlightenment, the things that people don't like to talk about so much to get their own part. Then we look at models of being. And these come not only from yoga, but also from Ayurveda, the chakras, the doshas, the koshas, the vayus, and the gunas, which are all ways to describe the subtle body and the energies in our bodies and ways that we can bring ourselves into balance. And then the next part looks at like the duality of balance and ways to stay in balance once we have moved a step or two closer to being in it. Finally, we give folks tips for actions they could take, and each chapter ends with actions, suggested actions that you could take to kind of ingrain, embody the lesson of the chapter. But then we go into like, here are things you can do in a minute, here are things you can do in 5 minutes, here are things you could do if you had all afternoon. And also how to keep the practice alive across time. Like, what's something that you could do every day? What's something you could do once a week? What's something that you could do monthly, quarterly, even up to annually? Like taking yourself on retreat would be an example of an annual action to take, to keep yoga alive in yourself. So that's the main structure of the book, and each of the chapters is quite short. Um, there are 30 some chapters, I think, in the book, but none of them are particularly weighty. So the idea would be this could be something, it's not a like your daily dose of yoga, but you could like take 30 some weeks to go through just a chapter at a time, and then take the rest of the week to go through the actions that we suggest and see how they land for you. Or you could just pick it up and say, well, this is what I'm going to work with for the next few months. Or you can read it cover to cover. Whatever you want to do will make me happy.
Yeah, and I think even as a teacher, if you again, this is you have two wonderful books about teaching yoga beyond the poses, but the little sections after the teaching, I almost look at it as if you were to read, let's see, like chapter 2 is quiet the mind. And then you have, like a page and a half talking about quieting the mind in yoga. And then there's these little squares with the actions. So I almost look at the page and a half as like your before class Dharma talk in a way.
Mhm.
And then you can take from the actions something that Sage and Alexandra wrote for us to then give as like something that you're doing throughout the class. Now, some of them talk about like writing and journaling, unless that's what you're offering in class, you'd have to adapt it. But there's usually something very tangible that you could then thread throughout the class and then come back to the little teaching at the end
Mhm.
as well. So it's, even though it's not structured with that template that you gave in the other books, I think that it's adaptable into that template.
I agree. I agree. And I made up, I put together, collated from the book, all the journal prompts, and they are available at my website, sagerountree.com/yoga off the mat as a download. So you can get them as a Google
Oh,
Doc if you
awesome.
do want to write directly into the document itself, or you can download a PDF either in black and white if that's the kind of printer you have, or color if you want to go all the way, and and print it out. Some people really like to write on physical paper, but I'm also hoping that folks will just read the book, whether they read the paper copy like you were holding up, Heidi, or the ebook. I also am an ebook reader, as I know you are, or listen to the audiobook, which has got me and Alexandra alternating chapters, and then open
Well,
your own
that's fun.
journal. Yes,
Have
it
you
is
always done
fun.
that? Have you
We've done
always?
that for the last two books, and it's so
Very
much better
cool.
than reading the entire book yourself, which is what I've done for my other audiobooks. And that, like, your voice is shot by the end of that couple days. But when we're trading off, especially because the chapters are short, piece of cake.
Yeah, it's probably fun too.
Mhm.
I would think that would be fun.
It is, it is. Well, again, like the radio announcer in me loves to get in the sound deadened room in the beautiful studio and just start talking into the mic.
I could imagine that you'd be very good on the radio. I listen to your podcast. Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I do listen on it when I walk my dog, and your voice is very soothing. It is
Thank
very
you.
engaging and soothing to listen to. So I could
Thank
see you
you.
being very
Yeah,
good at
when
that.
I get on the mic, I taught a couple weeks ago at the Berkshire Yoga Festival in Massachusetts, and
Oh, you're
I
in
was
my
like,
neck of the woods.
oh, it was so fun. I had a great time. I hope that I'll be back next year. They put that mic on you, that little Madonna mic, and like then you
Mm-hmm.
just drop into the voice. I love it. I'm like, watch out, because I come in with one energy, and then I hear my voice coming through the speaker, and it's like, oh, now it's yoga teacher voice. Hopefully, without being too yoga teacher voice.
I hate when people do that.
Yeah, well, it can't be
And
everyone's favorite, Heidi.
but I teach an outdoor class still. That was the remnant of the pandemic. And I call it my Britney Spears mic, not my Madonna mic. But I do enjoy getting to hear my voice reflect back at me like that. It bounces off the speaker, off the building, and comes back. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. I sometimes sing when I teach by accident. And I think that's why. I never do it in here because I'm not wearing a mic, but when the mic's on, just like randomly sing songs.
I love it.
It's fun. Now, have you considered, because this is something I've done in past studios and I haven't done it here, I like doing yoga book clubs as something that's very community driven for people that practice with me. And sometimes they've been something you sign up for as a series. Other times it's just like a lovely thing that we do, drop in, let's read a book and talk about them. And I'm almost picturing, I like books like this. I've done the Yamas and Niyamas by
Mhm.
Deborah Adele. I love that
Mhm.
book. I love ones that there's questions and things for you to talk about and think about in terms of how this makes sense to me and my life as a group. And that free download that you talked about, the Google Doc, I think that would be a really cool thing for people that want to use this as a book club at studios as well. That might be a nice resource.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I've seen there's a trend in the bigger bestsellers. In fact, one of my friends from graduate school, I have a PhD in English literature, and one of my friends from graduate school went on not to teach English, but to write those book club prompts for some of the big house publishers. You know,
They're
it's in the back of the
helpful.
book and it's like book club questions. How do you think Carly came to make these choices? You know, and you, of course, could write your own, but I think you're exactly right. The journal prompts would be great. Chat openers or
Conversation.
discussion. Yeah, great conversation prompts for a book club. And if any of the listeners are going to do this in their yoga teacher training or their yoga studio, loop me in. I would love to come even just for 20 minutes and do a Q&A. I would be delighted to do that. So reach out to me
That'd
at
be so cool.
sagerountree.com. I would love to. Yeah, I have a standing offer for yoga teacher trainings that use my books as textbooks. It's like I will come for an hour on Zoom or whatever platform you want to talk to your trainees about the books and answer their questions. And nothing pleases me more than seeing people engaging with these ideas, especially taking the time to read my work. Thank you.
I love that. That's very cool and a nice offer. And it does fill your own cup, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite teaching or chapter from the book that really sticks out to you that you either enjoy teaching or embodying or writing? Like the favorite one that you wrote?
Yeah, the first one I wrote was the chapter on joy, and that's the one that I read on next week's episode of Yoga Teacher Confidential, my podcast. Alexander and I do a little book reading, so I chose that one because it made me laugh to write it, just to think about the concept of Maitri of delighting in others' happiness in the paradigm of social media, like a world where social media exists and we can compare, and the concept of comparison being the thief of joy. So I really liked writing that one, and that one has, I think, the only table in the book. Like there's a little grid, and I wrote a little graphic about like they feel happy, I feel happy, they feel sad, I feel sad, and tried to categorize words that describe those feelings. Because I think like they feel happy, I feel sad is an experience that many of us have when we're scrolling social media. And instead, if we could just jump a quadrant and move into the they feel happy, I feel happy, or practice it, because practice is how you strengthen those compassion muscles and bring yourself to more joy. And the world could certainly use a lot more joy. So that is my favorite. That's the one that I read on next week's episode. Alexander read the chapter on Abhinivesha, the fear of death. and and I think that that's a really fun one too. As she says on my podcast, like we live in a death phobic culture. We try to like keep ourselves perpetually young, just new focus on longevity, and that yoga is trying to give us tools that we practice in every class when we do shavasana to accept our inevitable death. And what freedom comes once we accept that everything is finite, that a lot of things that feel important are completely irrelevant and inconsequential. And yoga is asking us every time we do corpse pose to lean into this freedom and this concept. So she does a beautiful reading of that chapter.
I love that. It's actually one of my favorite topics to teach because it is confrontational and uncomfortable for so many people. And apparently, I like to make people uncomfortable. And I practice it myself. We were just having an interesting conversation. My dog I'm obsessed with my dog, my sweet Millie. She's 6, and my kids joke that she's my favorite child. She's not, but I love her very much. And we also joke that I think she will never die. And she has this weird thing going on in her neck right now, or out of nowhere, it's like very swollen. And so actually this morning, my husband took her to the vet and, they took a sample and she's on antibiotics and we have to wait 48 hours before seeing if she needs further testing. But I said to my husband, I'm like, well, it's obviously nothing because she's never going to die. And he was like, I'm sorry, what? I'm like, well, it's right, like just stuttering, trying to be able to be like, nothing's ever going to happen to my sweet baby. Nothing. She's totally fine. It's like, wow, if you could only listen to yourself and look at yourself right now, you look like
Mhm.
you're like out of your brain. I'm like, I understand that she will die, but also she's never going to die.
Mhm.
And this is what we grapple with. It's a reality. And
Yep.
for yoga teachers that are willing to bring that up to our students and help them explore that is pretty awesome.
Yeah. My teacher, Leslie, says the only pose we ever have to master is Shavasana. So we should put our effort into that. That's the one pose everybody's going to be doing.
Yeah. And some people absolutely love it. When I ask for requests for practice, an hour of Shavasana. I'm like, ooh, nice. We're not going to do that today, but I love that. And other people, it is the absolute most challenging pose that they could ever practice,
Mhm.
harder than the most complex, physically demanding posture that we could ever ask our bodies to explore. Because being still and practicing for that finality is really hard. Last night I had this guy at class, he's like tapping his fingers the whole time and the room's silent. And I'm like, oh my God, everybody can hear this magic. So then I'd like make a comment about like if your brain is having trouble with the body being still, come back to the and I like gave something for the brain focusing prompt essentially, but it's really hard.
It is. It
It's
is.
really
It
hard.
is, and it's a skill that you can develop. It's a craft you can hone, but you have to be willing to get started if you want to improve at all. You have to
Yeah,
go through a little bit of that discomfort in order to find the ease on the other side.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about your book. I'm so grateful that you reached out and that I got to read it. I absolutely love yoga books. I love the way that you and Alexandra approach it, that you're not afraid to go deeper into philosophy, but finding images that help make it understandable, especially when it's complex. I, in particular, really enjoyed, I think it was the koshas. You talk about like a
Mhm.
tree. Is it?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's really cool because most people hear about it like an onion, right? They think
Ah,
about that koshas as an onion and you're
yeah.
peeling away the layers. But if you don't mind sharing, I think it's such a cool way that you described it. And I think people will be really interested. Do you mind?
Is it well, you'll have to remind me, is it the metaphor of ice on a tree?
No, it's that like it's about wrong C. Or maybe it was
Oh,
glaciers, no, the
that's
koshas.
in the
Glaciers.
kleshas.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, I'm
but
doing the
that
wrong K word. That's whatever.
but the see, this is why people need a book like this because there are
They
so
need a
many
book.
and then what? We have both doshas and koshas, like,
Yeah,
that
they
gets
basically
confusing.
it's you talk too fast
Yeah,
and nobody knows what
they're
you're
actually
saying.
finding the kleshas, yes,
The
as
glaciers.
the root, the trunk of the tree, the trunk of the suffering tree is avidya, is wrong seeing, and all the other kleshas come from not seeing correctly what is real. So if you are craving something, or if you have a strong aversion to something, both of those raga and dvesha are like a refusal to face the reality of what is or is not here right now. If you're craving something, you want something that isn't here to be here. If your aversion is to something that is happening, you want the feeling or the person
To
that
go
is
away.
here to go away. And both of those are just from the trunk of avidya, of wrong seeing. Similarly, ego, asmita, is wrong seeing that like you are more important than other people, that there's separation between us at all. It is a wrong seeing of this concept that your little ego capsule is separate from the whole. And then, of course, abhinivesha, the fear of death or fear of the unknown, is a wrong seeing of like what death could mean. And something that Alexandra and I talked about when I had her on my show is something she told me years ago that she had read somewhere. I was like, that just blew my mind. It was, why are we so hung up about where we're going after we die? Why are we afraid when we think about death? Do you lie awake in the middle of the night afraid of where you were before you were embodied. And it's like, no, you don't. So why would
I
going
might
back
now, though, Sage. Thanks.
well, why would going back to whatever consciousness, unconsciousness, reality we were in
Before.
before be scary at all? So, like, when we start to think about it like that, we can get closer toward a right seeing about what,
Mm.
any state of consciousness might be.
Yeah. I think that's so beautiful. And it makes it so much more easy to understand when you have that visual, as long as you're actually saying the right word that you're trying to visualize. I love that. It's really
Well,
helpful.
I hadn't heard onion for the koshas. The koshas are the sheaths or the
Yes,
layers
the
of our
sheath, like
being.
the layers of
Yeah.
the onion
Yeah.
that
And
you're
what I use for that is light lampshades. Light bulb is the bliss body, Anandamaya kosha in the center, and then we've got kind of lampshades up around them that are obscuring that light a little bit. And sometimes you could go to, I guess, Pier One or World Market, like one of those import shops, and find like a perforated lampshade. So there's a pattern cut into it. And it's like if we have a bunch of them that are surrounding our central bliss body, maybe we can line up the perforations so some of
can
the
shine
radiant
through.
joy within us, some of the divinity within us can shine through and make a difference in lighting up this world.
Oh, that's beautiful too.
Um,
That's really beautiful. What a lovely concept to leave us with, right? To
Better than an
that
onion. I mean, I
way
like
better
to
than
use
an
onions,
onion.
but
That makes you
onion is the
cry. That makes you
yeah.
cry when you cut through the layers. It's just a really hard thing to cut through right now. Just see that beauty within. No, that's much better. So yes, the book comes out on Tuesday. Yoga Off the Mat, a practical guide to the wisdom of yoga. Find balance, meaning, and liberation in your daily life. And I'll link to in the show notes. I'll link to the page on your website where you can find the book and the resources. They're all in the
Good.
same.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Those will all be there. But I'm so grateful that you came on again today, and I can't wait to see
Well,
what comes next.
thanks, Heidi. Thank you so much for having me. It was a joy to see your gorgeous studio. I'm so happy for you.
I've evolved from the closet. It's very
I
exciting.
was hoping to see the tie-dye in the closet, but I
My
like this
tie-dye
even more.
elephant behind me,
Yeah,
because I have my pretty wall hanging thing above me.
gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you. It's so nice to see you, and good luck with the launch of the book.
Thank
And reach
you.
out when you have the next one.
I
And
will.
congrats on the sale of the studio.
Yeah,
That's
it
exciting.
was very peaceful. It was very calm. It feels fantastic for everybody involved. So, yay.
Yay,
Yay.
right
Don't think
time,
about
right
that. You're
time.
never going to die. Your studio is never going to die. Neither will Millie.
Wait, very healthy. You have very good memory. When you say something, you listen and you remember. That's a
I
very
try.
hard skill for people.
I
That
try.
does it come naturally?
No.
No, you do
Gotta
really.
try.
That's
Yeah.
impressive. You've
Thanks.
echoed back many things I've said
Uh,
many sentences later. I noticed that. That's makes you feel very seen. Thank
well,
you.
good. Thank
Yeah,
you. Thanks so much
you're
for
welcome.
having me.
You're welcome. And I'll see you next time.
Okay.
Thanks
Bye.
for, bye. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next week with a new theme and inspiration to bring to your yoga practice and your teaching. See you next time.